Hola chicos, gracias por sintonizar Bitcorner Podcast, el primer podcast salvadoreño de Bitcoin donde entrevisto a líderes, pensadores, economistas, políticos, educadores en Bitcoin y mucho más. Recuerda que este podcast es un puente entre todas estas líderes, pensadores y que están trabajando en Bitcoin y nuestra comunidad hispanohablante. Así que si quieres apoyar el show, por favor no olvides suscribirte al canal. Y si te gusta este tipo de contenido, dale el botón de like para que puedas compartirlo y llegue a muchas más personas. Y además no olvides darle a la campanita para que no te pierdas ningún episodio y te llegue la notificación de un nuevo episodio. Además, recuerda que este podcast no te ofrece ningún tipo de consejo financiero, es nada más para educación y entretenimiento, así que antes de realizar cualquier inversión, no olvides hacer tu propia investigación y sé consciente de tu tolerancia al riesgo. Ok, es hora de hablar del primer partner del podcast, que es donde yo protejo mis bitcoins, Blockstream. Cuando dejas tus activos digitales en un exchange o en custodia de alguien más, te expones a riesgos de terceros no deseados. A diferencia del sistema bancario tradicional, Bitcoin te permite tomar el control total de tus fondos utilizando tus propias claves privadas. Esto te permite ser soberano y esencialmente tu propio banco. Al tomar el control de tus Bitcoins, puedes evitar riesgos innecesarios de terceros. Almacenar tus Bitcoin en custodia de terceros como los exchanges puede exponerte a ataques de actores malintencionados, gobiernos o estafadores que lo único que quieren es apoderarse de tu dinero. El proceso de autocustodia puede parecer abrumador al principio, pero afortunadamente Blockstream Jade Wallet hace que sea súper fácil custodiar tus activos. Las billeteras de hardware son dispositivos que almacenan de forma segura las claves privadas de tus bitcoins y activos de Liquid sin conexión a Internet. Las billeteras de hardware aumentan la seguridad de tu billetera porque tus claves privadas se almacenan en un dispositivo especializado que no está siempre conectado al Internet. Como te he dicho antes, mantener tus claves almacenadas en un dispositivo en línea puede exponerte a factores adicionales de ataque, por lo que se recomienda usar una billetera de hardware al almacenar grandes cantidades de Bitcoin durante largos periodos de tiempo. Jade es una billetera de hardware no custodial para Bitcoins y Liquid que ofrece opciones de firma simple y firmas múltiples. Yo personalmente lo utilizo para almacenar mis Bitcoins, ya que me siento mucho más seguro manteniendo mis Bitcoins en una billetera fría que en una almacenada, por ejemplo, en mi teléfono. Si estás pensando en adquirir uno para ti, no olvides utilizar el código de descuento de nuestro show, BitCorner Podcast. De esta forma estarás apoyando directamente el show y además obtendrás un 10% de descuento para la compra de tu billetera fría. ¿Ok? Hora del show.
Every narrative that you see out there is in some way supposed to scare you, right? Whether it's the environmental narrative, you're supposed to be afraid, or it's the pandemic. This narrative of fear, of dystopia, of control, and Bitcoin is really the opposite. Is really giving hope back and seeing technology as, again, that emancipatory tool for all of humanity. Um, so yeah, it's very powerful. It's powerful, and I think definitely second that idea that in El Salvador there is that drive to restore humanity and find hope in the future.
Hello, guys. Welcome once again to BitCorner, the podcast for Bitcoiners from El Salvador and to the world. Today is a special day. Today is the last episode of season one. We made it. We made 21 episodes. So we're currently preparing, planning, and creating the whole schedule for season two. Of course, we are not going. It's summer here, but we're not going to stop. This is just the beginning. Season one was a huge success. Thanks to you guys. I really like your support. I couldn't make it without you. So thank you for making this possible. And all right, so to start and to finish also the first season, we have here Mick Morucci, that he's the CEO of Geyser. We had Stelios before, that is also a co-founder of Geyser Fund, but this is an amazing project. So Mick, thank you for being here. Thank you for your time and welcome.
No, thank you so much for the invite, and thank you for inviting both Stadios and me in separate podcasts. I feel like this is a super treat for Geyser, so I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I mean, personally, I love this project because crowdfunding it's really, for me, it's really powerful. And but well, we talked already that with Salid, but if you do it in the fiat system, is really complicated, especially well, we all know in the people that we are in this space, all that involves, right? If you crowdfund something, you can be shut out. For example, what happened in Canada and many other examples. So I love what you're doing, guys. I love that you empower not just monetarily, but you make opportunities for people that can make their own projects, not just personal projects, but in the society. So, and as I told you, it's not just about talk about projects. I also love that our audience meet the people behind every project. At the end, we are all humans. We all look for something to make something good, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we also have, not to share our podcast, but we also have a podcast where like you said, we can really highlight the creators behind the projects and try to help creators also get more of a spotlight. Because they are, like you were saying, the heroes, right, that are creating content, creating value, creating experiences, educating, creating art, building communities. So yeah, we knew there was something with Geyser when we started it, and then we kept on being told, oh, but you're too broad and you have to go niche. But at the end of the day, the niche is Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is still very growing really fast, but very small niche. And for the first time in the history of humanity, we can create a tool of crowdfunding that empowers people to crowdfund at a global level. We haven't really ever done that before, ever. And when it comes to the world, we've done crowdfunding since the beginning of human time. We were pooling resources to build churches. We were pooling resources to build dams. That was the first financial primitive that you can think of that involves a higher level abstraction of the use of money. Like money is abstraction that is like essentially acting as an abstract unit that can buy several different things, right? That solves the common problem known as the coincidence of wants, right? That I want a money, I make apples, you make chickens, and I want maybe I don't want your chickens, but you have something out, but you can still give me money so that I can use the money for what I want, right? So it finally solves this, but then it also creates these new financial tools like crowdfunding, where people can then use their money to pool towards particular things. Instead, if I make apples, it couldn't be used to make that thing because barter doesn't. It doesn't allow for any sophisticated financial system. So crowdfunding is a very basic first step to that complex financial system that a lot of the world just doesn't have access to, only at a small scale level, right? When it comes to just pooling basic resources like in their local environment. But Bitcoin allows that to happen at a global scale, and it also enables that to happen much more instant, much more. So all the benefits of the internet and digital technologies that make things instant, make things scalable, right? So yeah, that's why we thought like really crowdfunding is going to be a killer application for Lightning. The thought is how me and Stadios started Geyser is that I realized that Bitcoin and Lightning were ready. The technology is there. Lightning really works to scale Bitcoin so much, and what we needed now are tools to actually make Bitcoin and Lightning usable and not usable, but worthwhile using, really adding value. And so we thought Bitcoin isn't just to store value; it's actually better money. that can connect the world, that can be the native internet, the money native to the internet, really. And we kind of really saw that very, very clearly when, still everyone is talking about crypto, and we would go to investors and they would say, oh, why don't you use Solana instead? Like, just lack of knowledge of what we're doing here. And we thought, this is powerful. And also looking around that in places like in Ethereum and other crypto companies, crypto ecosystem, crowdfunding did play an important role. So we noticed all these platforms that were creating these really vibrant communities. They were having these grants that now allow people to send a lot of funds and create these ecosystems, live ecosystem of creators. And we thought this is really missing in Bitcoin. There are some grants that are focused on developers, but there's no grants focused on people that are adding value in different ways, as artists, as educators, etc. So that was also something we said, okay, that's something worth doing, and we were lucky to meet the right people, like Brad Mills and his network, that helped us make that possible and take the first step. So yeah, blattered a lot there, but maybe that's a good start.
All right. Yeah, actually, I was going to ask you that how do you come with this idea, and but maybe I like to start a podcast asking the background, and I think that will make us a better picture of who you are, of course, and why do you thought this idea and to develop a Geyser fund. So if you can share with us a little bit about your background, like where are you from, what do you study, and even if you have hobbies, you can share it.
Sure, man. Look, my background is I'm Italian. I grew up in Italy, but also grew up in other countries. I went to international school and sort of was brought up to think that, and I ended up studying anthropology and economics.
Cool.
And so I initially thought I wanted to work in the development sector, in the international development sector, meaning like, helping to, lift poverty, lift the poor, help to kind of build infrastructure to help developing countries kind of rise up. And I started that way. So I was working on an NGO for a year in Nepal, and that really changed me. And because of my background in anthropology, my role was to go out into the field and learn, about the locals, how locals lived, what kind of, issues they were experiencing, how our programs might maybe fit into their lives and help them improve their lives. And what I really kept on noticing over and over again is that even in places where there was no toilets, there were no roads, people still had smartphones, right? People still had smartphones that allowed them to communicate with each other and with their families and friends all across the world. Some of whom were just working and sending back remittances and money. And I didn't ask about what kind of money they were using. I doubt they were using Bitcoin, but it helped to really click something in me that like technology is pivotal. That while development sector had never reached some of these areas because it doesn't scale, because it's clunky, it's expensive, and because the impacts also are never also seen. You see these villages with toilets that were just locked up because there were all these problems associated to using it, and they're just not sustainable. Technology was what was making their lives better. They were using smartphones to communicate with each other at scale for free. And so I really understood something that had been obscure to me, having grown up in a very kind of critical background where you kind of think, oh, technology, social media is bad for you and all that kind of stuff, really thinking, okay, fucking hell, like technology is making us better in so many different ways. It really is enabling, it's democratizing to the opportunities of society, kind of like akin to what Jeff Booth calls, technology is deflationary. Really saw that. And so that really changed my perspective. And then after that, after some more of these types of jobs, I realized that I wanted to contribute to the world by working in technology. And so I ended up working as a designer in some kind of in kind of the fintech space, and then also some time in the crypto space. So I worked as a designer, as a user researcher. So my focus is really how do we use technology to improve, user experiences? How do we solve problems essentially with technology, rather than building technology for just building cool gadgets? It's more like, how do we solve real human problems? So it's really trying at the intersection between human systems and technology. That was always been my so worked many months, many years in this space, and then I discovered Bitcoin, and for me it made sense from the very beginning. So I first heard about it in 2010, and then completely dismissed it, and then heard about it in 2017, and decided to actually take the time and study it, and understood it was something really, really powerful.
And when was your aha moment? When do you said, okay, this is crypto, this is Bitcoin? Because we all, well, not all, well, most people that we come from cryptos, and when you start to know, you get confused. Even it happened to me. But when was your aha moment that you say, okay, this is crypto, this is Bitcoin? Why different?
So I think a few things. The first thing that really orange pilled me was just the insightful content that the Bitcoiner community was creating around 2017, 2018. And I specifically remember the meme of Morpheus and Neo asking Morpheus, are you saying that I'm gonna be able to sell this for $1 million one day? And Morpheus says, no, I'm telling you that when you're ready, you won't have to. It's just, to me, I was like, what the hell? These guys are fucking crazy. But then that was an initial point to kind of understanding the perspective of the Bitcoin community, and that made sense. But then so as a Bitcoiner, I was still, open-minded, as they say, open-minded, to think and just to see what else was there. In fact, actually, I even worked for 1 year in the Ethereum ecosystem, and I got to say, okay, let's put my assumptions and preposition aside, and let's see what Ethereum has to offer. And what I discovered is that there are some use cases, but a lot of that is speculation, and just tokens and NFTs and things that are just all really grounded on speculation. And I wasn't a super fan of it. There are fun elements of it, but it's very degenerate type of fun, which is not great for most people. It's a bit like gambling. It's it's not something you would endorse. It's not like a positive part of human experience, in my opinion, at least. And then I also just noticed just the technical elements of Ethereum that just I'm not super technical. I'm not a technical person, but I could see just running a node versus using Ethereum, and like the second layers on Ethereum having tokens and not being scalable. You're still paying $5 fees for a transaction on an L2 on Ethereum. So that made no sense. When you're on Lightning, you're paying nothing. So it seemed like a much more robust system, Bitcoin. And then the ethical elements of it, I discovered I would look more about the pre-mine, and just the way that it was created just seemed like, again, not solid technical foundation, not solid ethical foundations, and maybe even like legal. Like, let's see, if the government decides that Ethereum is a security, their Ethereum foundation, is it going to get dissolved? Maybe. And what happens then? Maybe it still exists for a little bit, but how reliable is it as a system? I don't think it's very reliable. So for me, Bitcoin, and then I just reading into incredible content that I think I remember being particularly impacted by Jimmy Song, who said that decentralization is not a spectrum, it's a binary. The idea that you either are decentralized or you aren't. There's no in between. And that helped. And I first thought, okay, there's a space for everything in the world, but no. The reality is no. The reality is that states have, it's whatever survives the state. So maybe you're right. Maybe it is a spectrum, but under what circumstance? You have to assume a very you have to assume a strong attack surface. You have to assume the state companies are going to try to shut you down. So Bitcoin is the only thing that really I think will stand the test of time in the long run. So basically, working in this space, in the Ethereum space, I realized, okay, I want to dedicate my life towards something that is more long lasting, that I know will outlast us, that will be a positive force for humanity, From my economics background, I understood I understood the problems that inflation is causing around the world, and I think that is essentially the biggest problem. I often find myself talking to friends that say, "Oh, Bitcoin, okay, what about NFTs?" And I was like, God, NFTs, like, does it really matter? Like, does it matter compared to Bitcoin? Like, does it matter for you to know what an NFT is and why it's valuable versus why Bitcoin is valuable? Well, the answer is it doesn't matter. So just don't worry about that. It doesn't really matter that much for you. It probably doesn't matter. Just stick to Bitcoin. That's the meme, right? The meme is Bitcoin. That's what really you should be thinking about. So you should be studying. Yeah, so I'm really, very much think that Bitcoin is what's important, and we have to keep pushing. And so I thought, okay, we need to start. And I was noticing a lot of this investors kind of really not understanding what the whole point is about, and and I just said, okay, I'm just gonna start building our own thing. And then luckily we were able to find some Bitcoin, mission aligned investors that are Bitcoiners, that see the value of Bitcoin, that see that Bitcoin is not just to store value, but it's going to be creating this incredible new economy online for creators and for the world. So so we're really lucky at Geyser to find investors that are aligned. And a shout out to Brad Mills, Max Webster, P&B, obviously Lightning Ventures that helped us saw the vision and saw the role for crowdfunding on Bitcoin and Lightning, and saw the potential to grow the economy. And so, so we were really blessed to find these people that are aligned. We were blessed to find this community of creators and to help Morucci's community of creators in Bitcoin, and to really have, we're born at the right time. I think really almost aligned to the growth of Lightning that makes all these incredible use cases possible. While other cryptos are still paying $10 per transaction, like Bitcoiners are just having a blast, having a good time, paying very little in fees and experimenting with Lightning, which is so exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have a question for you, because with Stelios, we talk about Lightning, but barely. And I think one thing that we didn't discuss, and I think it's really important, is, I think I'm going to ask you two questions. The first one is for people that don't know how Geyser actually works, and if you have a small project, if you can explain to them very easy how they can do it to post their project and get funded. And the second one is that why do you chose Lightning instead of the base layer? Because people may understand that there's the base layer and then it's Lightning, but if you can explain the difference so people know why it's important to develop like these things on Lightning.
Yeah, good question, Juan. It's both good question. So how does Geyser work right now? So Geyser basically Geyser works both online, on chain and on Lightning. When you're funding. So if you're trying to fund, you can always send Lightning or on-chain payments. But when it comes to when you want to create a project, you create a project on Geyser to receive money, to receive Bitcoin. What you do is you attach your Lightning address. So there are all these Lightning wallets that provide what's called a Lightning address, which is an email-like identifier that looks like email, but it's for sending Satoshis. And you create your project by plugging your Lightning address. And then what happens is that every time somebody funds you on Lightning, it goes straight into your Lightning address. Or if somebody funds you on chain, we swap that over to Lightning and send it to your Lightning address. So as a creator, it's incredibly convenient because you have one address and all the funds go to that one address. But then if people fund you from Lightning or on chain, that's sort of kind of their problem. That's sort of, that's how they choose to pay you. But as a creator, you don't have like two different places for you to manage two different wallets. It all goes to one wallet. And it's an incredibly powerful, powerful tool. So in this sense, Geyser works in both ways. Now, the second question you ask is, why did we choose to kind of prioritize Lightning over the base change? And it's a really good question. And there's really trade-offs, right? So on-chain Bitcoin is obviously the best tool when it comes to self-custody, censorship resistance, owning your assets, right? So that's ideally where you might want to make it the more secure system. But what we noticed is that most creative, and actually that's how we started. We started that every project on Geyser had to have a node, a voltage node. And what we realized that it's hard to work on both systems, right? So with the voltage node, you receive funds on chain and you receive them on Lightning. So people had to learn how to open channels, which was what we noticed is that people just weren't ready for that. They just weren't ready for just the sheer effort, time, but also the cost of opening channels, managing liquidity, and it's money cost, but also time cost. Now the question then is like, why don't we just make the on-chain address the main recipient of all the funds? Well, it's not great because if you're sending one SAT, you can't really send one SAT and swap it onto on-chain. That's just incredibly costly. So it doesn't really work like that. It couldn't be a great system with that either. But also we noticed that 99% of projects, 100% almost, are all like Bitcoiners that want to do good work, that want to do the creative stuff, that want to do education. They don't want to be doing a protest, or like raising funds for, whatever censorship resistance wants. But just to kind of entertain their own creative projects. But also we were super recommend. So while people receive money in their Lightning addresses in their Lightning wallet, we do recommend them that they move their funds away, especially if they have a high amount of funds, to move them over to their on-chain address. That said, it is very much a trade-off, and we chose to prioritize convenience, usability, making Bitcoin more accessible to more people around the world, rather than like insane censorship resistance, which, by the way, already tools exist for that. So BTC Pay Server is a great tool if you want super censorship resistance, basically run a campaign on your own node. You can do that there, right? And actually, you can still use Geyser in a censorship resistant way by plugging your node. And you can plug in your node, and actually Geyser is free for you. So if you plug your node, Geyser is free. If you plug in your Lightning address, we take a 2% commission. So we still incentivize you to do what's better, right, from a censorship resistant perspective, but really trying to, increase usability of Bitcoin and Lightning. Last point is that actually Lightning addresses are not inherently custodial and lack censorship resistance. But you can set up a Lightning address using Voltage. You can set up a Lightning address using BTC Pay Server. You can set up a Lightning, and also we're hoping to see many more Lightning wallets integrate Lightning addresses, like Blixt has attempted to do so. Breeze, I think it's also on their roadmap. So we will see Lightning addresses come up in non-custodial wallets that will add an insane amount of added value, because then people can plug in their Lightning addresses using their custodial Lightning wallets. And the final thing is, the cool thing about that is that what we're seeing, and part of the vision here, guys, is that if you look at what Strike is doing in the United States and Africa, if you look at BottlePay in BottlePay now is closing, but BitNob in Africa, Blink in El Salvador and in South America, like they have these custodial on-ramps to fiat, Lightning custodial wallets with on-ramps to fiat, which makes it so that it's incredibly powerful then to send sats. So if you plug in your Blink wallet, you can auto-convert that into your local currency, right? So you can essentially start receiving crowdfunding contributions in Bitcoin or even in Nigerian Naira, and auto-convert that, and goes to Lightning, and it auto-converts into your local currency. So we believe that these Lightning banks are the true neobanks that will be the banks of the future, because they have ramps to Bitcoin, but also on-ramps into fiat, and allow that. And Geyser sits as the interface that sort of connects these different communities. So yeah, that's sort of what, like, kind of how it fits into our grander vision. So Lightning also scales. Lightning is this incredible technology that makes instant payments seamless. It scales to the world, like on-chain just doesn't, right? It just doesn't scale. We can't onboard the entire world on-chain, right? It would raise the cost of transactions infinitely. So yeah, I mean, I gave you a lot of reasons. We thought about this a lot. I mean, Stelios really kind of went crazy and thinking of solutions took us months. But I'm happy to say that we were the first ones to really integrate Lightning addresses in such a pivotal way. And I think after that came Damus with Zaps, also integrating Lightning addresses. But yeah, it's incredibly powerful technology, and we're happy to have been part of the pioneering of this experimentation.
All right, and so I have a question that I don't know if it works this way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the traditional crowdfunding, when you do a campaign, you collect the money, and then you as a company keep the money, and then when you when you achieve, sorry, the 100% of your goal, you liberate it, right? But you don't do that, right? You don't do any custody. You just make the transaction directly right between the founder and the person that wants to be found.
Yeah, it depends on the platform. So Kickstarter does exactly what you said. So it's called the all or nothing model. So you set a goal, people send you money. If you could achieve the goal by the deadline, then you get the money. If not, the money goes back to who funded you, right? That's the all or nothing. But most other platforms like Indiegogo, GoFundMe, Crowdfunding, all these platforms are take it all, which is the model that we have as well. In terms of the all or nothing model, whether it's something we want to do, it is something that excites us. I think it is a powerful tool because it aligns incentives a lot. So, I mean, it is interesting. The challenge is doing that non-custodially. Being custodians would add a lot of friction and regulatory burden to us. So we're thinking deeply about how do we do that? How do we do that non-custodial? And we'll, if you're interested in the subject, reach out to us because we have some ideas and we want to experiment with that in the coming months. So
all right. And you also mentioned that when you are making when you're founding and you get found, the money goes to your Lightning address, and you say that is also important, that not just to keep it there, especially if a lot of money, that you should maybe translate it to to switch it to another safer wallet, for example, a wallet. So could you explain to our audience why it's that important, and maybe what is important, if you can, to maybe to run your own node, if it is possible?
Yeah, definitely. So it's not the end of the world to have some sats on your custodial wallet. Maybe just to take a step back, right? So there, just in case people are not familiar, there's different types of wallets.
All right, yeah.
Lightning wallets, right? There's custodial Lightning wallets, which means that so going right into crypto, people talk about hot wallets versus cold wallets. Hot wallets are but in both cases you're self sovereign because you have the keys to your funds. But a hot wallet is basically a wallet on your phone that the keys are stored in your device, and that in that sense they could still be hacked, right? A cold wallet instead is a wallet that is stored offline. That could be a hardware device, is a cold wallet, even actually a paper, paper backup is cold as well. It's not stored on your computer, attached to the internet. So, and then when you come to Lightning, you have hot wallets that are non-custodial, like Breeze, like Phoenix, and what they do is that they create a node on your actual device, and they're incredibly powerful. The usability is not always super yet, just because of the fact that you're running an actual node on your phone, so there's sometimes some lag, but it's still pretty good. and you can receive funds on chain or Lightning. It's really great. And you can write down your secret mnemonic phrase, which is a backup to your funds. Incredibly powerful. And then there is the custodial hot wallets, such as Wallet of Satoshi, that you're literally just trusting them with, being able to manage your funds, right, correctly. And yeah, you could get rugged, but we don't know. Probably not. They're acting a bit like banks, so you're trusting them, and trust is not inherently a bad thing. But you're not only trusting them, you're trusting that the government where they reside will allow them to operate, will not seize their funds. It's not just about them. So never definitely keep all your funds on wallets, custodial Lightning wallets.
Or exchanges.
Or exchanges. Oh, yeah, that for sure. That for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Take your wallet, all your funds off exchanges right now.
Yeah.
Especially now, I would say.
Yeah.
It's been a crazy week. I mean, with Binance, with Coinbase.
Do you see it coming? I think everyone saw this coming, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? They probably were lobbying and paying a lot of money to regulators, and then shit hit the fan with Gary Gensler and with the FTX stuff, and then he was really pressured to take an action against them. So yeah, it's if they can be attacked, they will be attacked. So I think it has to do also with internal pressures. Like, I forget who mentioned this, but if they're gonna start pumping money again into the economy, they want to know where it's going. And last time that they pumped money into the economy, it all went into JPEGs, NFTs, and crypto. And so they're like, okay, if we're gonna pump money, let's let it not go towards these speculators, right? And they've got a point. So I don't know, they might not be aware of it, but it might have the unintended consequence of Bitcoin rising a lot more than expected. In fact, the last bull run wasn't as big for Bitcoin because a lot of the money went into cryptocurrency. So in this case, we're gonna see a double pump for Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
I mean, that makes logical sense. I don't know if it will happen. If it will affect adversely Bitcoin as well. It's possible that Bitcoin will also be seen as, it will be attacked, because if a lot of people lose funds, it will also affect Bitcoin adversely. Unfortunately, the perception is not something you can get away from.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just a fun fact for our audience that maybe people don't know this, but CC actually went to El Salvador a couple months ago and want to be in El Salvador to open actually a license. I think he wanted a license in El Salvador, but thank God Najib is really he has really good advisors, Max Geyser and Stacy and all the corners, and they say nope. Get back home.
Wow.
And we're going to be Bitcoin only, and thank God they didn't gave him the license, because and I think it's at the point that to work with harmony and the best solution that we can have, right? And I just said it with the speculations, because if not, imagine the panorama right now. And also talking about Salvador, actually, well, I'm going to ask you a question, but I want to shout out that actually there are several projects that are being founded in Geyser. For example, Mi Primer Bitcoin, that are doing really well, actually. Torgos also, even my podcast is there, so all Salvadorian good projects are over there. Then I think that's one of the things that I think that are amazing, not just in case of El Salvador, that this provides new way to new projects, even in developing countries like Latin America or Africa or whatever, that they don't have access to financial system. I think it's a good tool, and not just Geyser, but in the end, Bitcoin, right, that gives you this opportunity, especially as you just said with Lightning, that basically is peer-to-peer instant. You can be here and you can send money to Australia basically, or whatever you are, and you can give an opportunity to people to do good stuff. And the question was about El Salvador. You went there, right? How was your experience there? Tell us.
I did go there, man. I did go there. We went for the Adopting Bitcoin conference, which was, we were invited. It was an incredible experience. Look, I think from the outside, the perception is, especially in the Bitcoin community, like El Salvador Bitcoin, obviously going there, you realize there is still a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of work to be done. You go around and people still, just want hard cash, right? There's still this gap of digitalization. They just don't have, they may have a smartphones, but they still don't trust the digital money. This idea that money has to be physical and tangible is still very strong there. So that's really exciting. But yeah, so what's exciting about it is that there's still quite, still these pockets of intense Bitcoin activity. So going to the beach in El Zonte and buying Bitcoin, buying ice cream with Bitcoin was super exciting. So there's definitely starting pupusas with Bitcoin. But again, not every place in San Salvador accepted it, of course. So there's still...
but if you try the pupusas.
Oh yeah, I have tried it. It's so good. Yeah, I loved it. I had, I think, about 6 pupusas in one day.
That's a lot.
Breakfast and dinner one day was delicious.
That's so cool. But yeah,
I think the people seem, but the people, I found them, still a little shocked from the whole things that have happened in the last decades, right? All the violence must have really affected the people and their psychology and their. So I don't know if it was just me, but I could definitely feel that, and so I could see why someone like Bukele would rise so quickly and powerfully, because people are really tired of that. They were really tired of the violence, tired of that hate map going around. They just wanted to start fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what you're saying is really important. Actually, I just remind Natalie Brunel. She was my second guest, and she told this quote that I think is really important, and I actually loved it. She said that she doesn't look politicians as heroes, and I agree with her. But not just talking about Bukele, any politician, you don't have to watch them as heroes. But the thing is that he's doing great, actually. I mean, it's just like Bitcoin. You see the proof of work. So you see that there's no more violence. That you see the economy is growing, and people will be agreed or not. But there's a change. There's a palpable change. People, they are not afraid anymore. So, and for us, I think as a Salvadorian, there is a fresh start. Even if you like or you don't like Bukele, it's the fresh start and a beginning. So it's like, I think it was Estelis that told me also that, yeah, it was Estelis. Estelis told me that his story was amazing. That he told me that normally when you speak people around the world, the perception of the people is that they're disappointed because of the course of the economy and the world is going with inflation and everything. But he said that in El Salvador he saw the opposite, because we came from 2 wars, actually, the Civil War and then the wars against the Maras, the gangs member, and you see hope. So, and me as a Salvadorian, I didn't realize that, but he made me realize that it's true, that now people is like switching and actually watching it and perceiving the world in the opposite way. Like, all right, now we have an opportunity, right, to develop, and not just thanks to Bukele, but for Bitcoin and everything that is developing there. So it's really amazing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's definitely, and that was Bukele's message was so strong, right? That in his speech about Bitcoin as the pretender, that we grew up in a world thinking that we could have hope, but in the West right now, every narrative that you see out there is somehow supposed to scare you, right? Whether it's the environmental narrative, you're supposed to be afraid, or it's the pandemic. This narrative of fear, of dystopia, of control, and Bitcoin is really the opposite. Is really giving hope back and seeing technology as, again, that emancipatory tool for all of humanity. So yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful, and I think definitely second that idea that in Salvador there is that drive to restore humanity and find hope in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, congratulations that I just realized that you won the pitch day on the Bitcoin conference. So congratulations on that. And
Thanks, man.
if you can tell the people briefly, if you want, what was the prize? What was the contest?
Yeah, so we were among 200 applicants of this pitch day in Bitcoin conference in Miami. There were 14 selected to pitch, and there were only 2 winners. One winner was the kind of a Bitcoin company focused on infrastructure, and the other was focused on adoption, Bitcoin adoption. We were selected to be the winners of the Bitcoin adoption cohort. And yeah, the prize, and look, all the players were great. They're all doing incredible work, and there's so much talent out there in the Bitcoin space, I'd say. But what really made it, in terms of the prize, it was just mostly the recognition, I'd say, and they're gonna write an article about us, and I think there's gonna be some advertising space and some products that were offered, but no cash handouts or trophies this time.
No, it was more actually. I think I made it wrong. The question, it was like more about what was about the contest.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And okay, I think we're going to start wrap it up. So I think I'm going to make you just like 2 or 3 more questions, and so yeah, one of them is like, what are you working on right now, or what can we expect on Geyser in the future months? Like, for example, a year or 6 months? What are you currently working on?
Yeah, look, so good question. So, I mean, we've just been doing a lot of cleanup, a lot of refactoring. So a lot of things that had to be done, like, for example, adding dark mode. The next step is going to be just making Geyser more accessible. We were talking about crowdfunding being a tool for the world. Well, Geyser is still in English, so it's still very limited to who can access it. So we're going to be adding different languages to people can view and read Geyser in different languages. Also different currency support, so you can view a currency within different local currencies. At the interface level, of course, it'll be Bitcoin and Lightning native entirely. What else? We are also working on really enhancing the reward system, so making it easier to buy and sell products, buy and sell products using Geyser, by integrating shipping and adding limits to items. So it's going to be a lot more seamless to buy and sell things on Geyser. And then on top of that, we want to integrate more social elements. So, for example, Juan, you have Twitter, right? You probably have a Nostr. So what you can do is you can, as you probably already do, log in with Nostr. You can log in with Twitter. And then what we do is that we show your social profile. So we show your social graph. So what does that mean is that we see how connected you are to the network ecosystem, so that people can say, okay, wow, this guy is very well connected. We trust him more. We will fund him. So we're going to do that. And then that will really help out a lot with the grants. So if people fund you towards the community voting grant, that will help you assess whether the funder is a real person or not. And if the funder is a real person, that will count more towards the community voting grant, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, that's like a really great idea, because you see the circle that the person is involved in. So yeah.
Exactly. You can also then see projects based on who within your circle has funded them, or if someone in your circle created a project, or if someone you follow on Twitter created a project, you won't have to, you will be able to see that a lot more immediately.
Of course. Oh, okay. That's so cool. And okay, one of the questions I think is really important I want to know your opinion is that normally I ask about the Bitcoin adoption, but since you're based in Lightning, how do you see the future of Lightning?
Well, Bitcoin and Lightning are both Bitcoin, I think, right? So Bitcoin adoption
Yeah, of
is
course.
Lightning adoption, and vice versa. How do I see the future of Lightning?
In terms of tools or integrations or,
Yeah, I think Lightning is incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful from perspective of a user who can use it. Like in some way, Lightning is already better than the current. Like Bitcoin Lightning is a better tech stack than the fiat system that we live in, because it's hard money, it's non-fiat, it's not like fractionally reserved, it's instant, it's global, it has all these it's interoperable, it's the best money already. The problem is when it comes to just how do we scale this to the entire world in a way that is censorship resistant? Not everyone around the world will be able to run a Breeze wallet. I think, right? Because you're still dealing with creating channels. It'd be incredibly costly to do so. So while I'm super bullish, I'm also aware and conscious that what we're doing here is we're also potentially recreating some of the problems. For example, we're creating, like, it hurts me to say this, but we are incentivizing the Geyser to, we are actually incentivizing users to run their nodes, but the user experience makes it so much better to just use a custodial Lightning wallet, and that's what I think really we need to improve on. We need to really like focus on, and to make Bitcoin and Lightning into technologies that can really really solve all the problems. And I think the problem that Lightning still has is that the tendency towards centralization, tendencies towards custody, and yeah, that's something that I think we just need to be aware of, pay attention to, and try to solve. And I'm glad to see that really smart brains like Burak are thinking about with this new ARC layer, scaling layer of Bitcoin, which could be promising, but let's see. I haven't yet looked into it too much, but yeah, I think that's the only shortfall of Lightning, is that it can be more centralized. Like people don't run their nodes, right? If we don't come up with a solution that are custodial, non-custodial with Lightning, like Breeze, and how do we scale those as well? So yeah, I'm very, very bullish, but I also, from an adversarial thinking perspective, we need to be aware of these challenges.
All right, perfect. And my last question is, it's a fun one. So have you ever spiel your family yet?
Not everyone. Not everyone. Yeah, I mean, so it took some time, but some of them are, start slowly getting it. And part of it is really just, as Bitcoiners, we get really excited about Bitcoin, but we can't impose our excitement upon others. We have to let them find Bitcoin whenever they're ready for it. So it's something we can't force or stress. So we just have to let people find their way and they're at the right time. So yeah, but glad to see that a few family members are interested in that.
And how do you change that? For example, the perspective of someone that I just said that we were talking about Salvador, that, and I think most places in Latin America, I don't know if here in Europe, but that they want the cash, they want the paper money. How do you think you can change the perspective of that to switch from digital to digital? It's hard, right?
Yeah, you either But there's really two options. You either create a solution that they're looking for. So you create physical Bitcoin nodes, which could be easy to create custodially, but not great to create, not super easy to create non-custodially. Think of a bank that issues notes that are backed by Bitcoin, physical paper notes, but obviously that's, you could get rug pulled, right? That's not great. But or you could recreate the fiat system, or you have, or the second option is, just make the user experience digitally so much better, so much more convenient, which it can, because physical notes are very are clunky. They can be degraded, but make it so good that it can be a seamless experience that won't be able to say no to that. And I think the second option is probably the better option. But unfortunately, like, it's often the young generations that adopt new technologies, and as they say, it's a little bit cynical, but maybe it's true, right? The quote that innovations happen one graveyard at a time, meaning that, like, innovations have to happen when this new generation is ready to adopt them. And I think it's somewhat true. There's something true in there. So older people are less, they have the less mental flexibility to learn. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, unfortunately. So that's the way of the world. But hopefully we make the experiences so much easier to understand, so much more appealing, so much greater use case and application that, like a lot of older people today are using Uber, right? Or Airbnb, that will accept Bitcoin because it's just a no-brainer. So I think that's the aim. That's what we should be striving for.
All right. Yeah, I totally agree that the user interface could be like a good approach. So Mick, thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. We made it. We finally did the first season, guys. So it will be a lot more. So Mick, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for talking about Geyser, explain Lightning, and for your time.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much.